Good morning. Welcome to the Humanist community in Silicon Valley's Sunday Forum. My name is Matt Courtney. I'm the recorder and a member of the board of the Humanist community. The Humanist community is a chapter of the American Humanist Association. Humanism is a reality-based philosophy of life that affirms our ability and responsibility to lead ethical lives of personal fulfillment that aspire to the greater good. We value freedom, health, happiness, fairness, compassion, and using science and reason to acquire and apply knowledge. If these words describe your thinking, we invite you to become a member of the Humanist community if you've not already done so. Membership forms are available on our website at humanists.org. It's humanist plural. If you are listening for the first time, welcome, and we invite you to continue listening to our weekly forums and other events. You can find all our events listed on the website, again, humanists.org. And please aid us in continuing to present these forums by donating to the Humanist community. You can find out how to donate to our organization on the website, again, humanists.org. So our speaker today is Doug Kramer. He was raised in a Scientology-indoctrinated family, and after, it sounds like eventually he rejected it and left the cult, as I'm going to call it, and he's here to talk about his involvement. So I'm going to let him give a little more information. Hopefully he can unmute himself. And Yep.
Thank you, Matthew. Am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So to keep it really brief, it's a long story. My dad got into Scientology when I was around 9 or 10 years old. He was at work one day and he opened up the newspaper and he saw at the bottom corner, it said Dianetics, learn how to communicate there. He's an introverted guy. He never really knew how to communicate very well with family. He's a good guy, but he was always kind of shut down in this. So this was his button, as they say in Scientology, something that got his attention, that got him to go down to the Ventura Mission, which is a Scientology place. And that's from us down there in the morning. He came back with a 1,000-yard stare in his eyes. As I understand now, he was hypnotized. And he came back and asked my mom, or rather told her, that I need to borrow a decent sum of money from a relative, a brother of mine, in order to do this new thing that I found today called Scientology that's going to handle what I need to handle. My mom didn't know what was going on. It caused a massive rift in the family for several months, maybe a year, until she was coached to go down there herself. And what they do really briefly is they find your ruin or your vulnerability inside of a room. It's too long to talk about here. Basically, they found my dad's vulnerability that day, sold him a bunch of courses, auditing. And then they found my mom's ruin. That mind virus called Scientology spread to the rest of the family. They had to work a long time on me to go down and get brainwashed incrementally through being younger in my teen years. Eventually, I took to it, which is another long story. I do itself. 15 members, I became a dedicated member of Scientology. And then for the last 12 and a half years, I woke up 12 and a half years ago, January 2008, in a single day. And I've been recovering, putting my mind and the pieces of the puzzle together ever since.
Cool. Just so happens to, I just so happen to have Dianetics right here. If anybody,
you're re-stimulating me. Don't put that up there again.
Okay, taking it down.
I'm just kidding. That's funny to see that book.
Yeah, actually, I got it. I'm not a Scientologist, but I got it because I was just curious what was in it, and we can talk about it more later. I think you have a video of yours that we want to show. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's on your end, right? Like, feel free to show it. I have no idea how to bring up the video.
Whoops, hold on. It's Dave. He's awake. Carl, I see you have a hand up, but we want to run a video real quick, and then we'll go to your question. If Dave is awake...
Apparently he is not.
He said he would be ready.
I'm here.
Okay, there we are. Can we run the video, Dave? Oh, I probably need to make sure you can share a screen. There
Or
we
it's
go.
unmuted.
We did not test that with something. You should be able to share your screen now. There we go.
Hello, YouTube. My name is Doug Kramer. This is the first YouTube video I've ever attempted to make, but I'm sitting out here in Los Angeles under lockdown. I think it's like 3 or 4 months now since, like the rest of the world, we're under house arrest, quarantine, whatever you want to call it. So while the world is burning down around me and there's literally nothing else to do, I figured now would be a good time to pass the time and talk about what it's like growing up in a secret fucking society. Because that's what Scientology is. It's a secret society. If they didn't have secrets, they wouldn't have to have an army of lawyers and goons to try to protect themselves from exposing the secrets, right? And also, if the secrets were exposed, they wouldn't exist anymore. So I'm going to talk about what it was like growing up in literally an alien world, because this experience had a really, really profound effect on my life. I think Scientology represents one of the highest, like, evils or crimes that you could actually do to a person. It robs you of your life, and we're going to go into great detail how that works. This is just going to be an introduction. If anybody's interested following my story, I only have like 4 or 5 subscribers, I think, so I don't even know if anybody's going to watch this, so maybe it's just like getting it off my chest. But I'm going to make a series of short videos explaining the whole journey from when my dad first got into it when I was a kid, and how that mind virus called Scientology spread to the rest of the family, and what that all was like, and then how I got out and where I stand today. Because it's taken me just a brief timeline. My dad got into Scientology when I was around 8 or 9 years old, and that happened in a single day, a single night. And that's going to be where I'm going to start the story from. And a long story short, after my dad got into it, the whole family dynamic, my life and everybody's, completely was going down another course. And in order to, so I got into it around 8 or 9 when my dad got into it, and I'll talk about that. But I didn't really become a Scientologist, a fully indoctrinated, card-carrying Manchurian candidate, until I was around 19 or 20 years old. From 19 to 20, up until the age of 33, I was a complete Kool-Aid drinking, 100% dedicated Scientologist. I completely believed in it. And shortly after I became a real Scientologist, around 19 or 20, a few years after that, I decided to move out to Hollywood and follow my dreams, what I wanted to do as a kid. And I'll talk about that a little bit too. So I moved out to Hollywood in my early 20s. In my early 30s, at the age of 33, I finally got my first break. I got a television, and then I started to kind of move up the ranks for a few years, and I was having the beginnings of a successful career. I was living my dreams. I was close to the top of the Scientology bridge to total freedom. I got up to OT3. I became a class auditor. I'll start to explain what all this crap, because it's like another language. It's like another freaking like terminology altogether. So I'll explain what it means as we go. But basically, I got up to that high levels. I was completely immersed in it. I was achieving my dreams as an actor, and I've never felt fucking so unbelievably fucked up, lost, and demented as when I finally got the beginnings of what I thought life was all about. So I'm going to talk about all that. So I'm just giving you a quick timeline. So at the age of 33, when I had all that going for me, in one day through one event, which again I'll talk about, I went from a completely dedicated Kool-Aid drinking, hypnotized Scientologist to what the fuck just happened to me? My entire life is a lie, all of it. And I have no idea how this happened or what the fuck's going on. But it's going to be hard to explain some of these moments because they're really surreal. But in a single day, at the age of 33, I knew my entire life was a lie. And so for the next 12 years, this was in 2008, January 2008, and we're now in, June 2020. So it's been 12 years that I've spent almost full time deprogramming from Scientology and understanding what happened. So it's taken me that long to really talk about what this thing is. A lot of people have done some amazing exposure, which is making it more and more possible for people to wake up to what's going on. And hopefully I can just talk about my story and go as deep as you guys want to go, because it's a really crazy story. And I have enough distance from it now, and I understand it finally, where I feel like I can somewhat articulate it and start to talk about it sensibly. So thanks for watching. I don't know if anybody's going to see this, but if they do and you have any questions, anything at all you want to ask, everything's open, everything's on the table. And maybe I can structure some of the videos around some of the questions that people have, but I'll just start from the very beginning when my father got into it, and we'll take it from there. It's quite a story. In fact, I have this book, Going Clear, Scientology, Hollywood, and the Prison of Belief. And that statement pretty much sums up my life. So thanks for watching, and I'll start another video here in a few days and update you. Take care. Bye.
All right. We lost Doug again. There
you said you lost me. I just muted myself. Does that also take away the video?
Yeah, just so you know, if you mute yourself, for now anyways, I have to click the thing to unmute you. So
got it. I won't do that.
Lost. I gotta unmute you.
Oh, Doug, is there any way you can turn up your mic a little bit?
Yeah, tell me if this exited all, Dave.
Can't hear anything.
Oh, we've lost you entirely now. Yeah, we've lost you entirely now.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Is this Dave? I'm sorry. This is brand new equipment, and I'm brand new to this. Let me just check my headphone real quick.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me if this brings the volume up.
No, it kills it.
How about this?
You sound fine now. Just keep the mic close to your mouth, and we're good.
Okay. You can hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
So basically, I think the plan is to just do Q&A for now. For the rest of the talk, unless you have another video that you really want to show. I don't see anybody with hands up, so I'm going to start off with one of my questions that has been I've wondered about for a long time and haven't had a Scientologist actually to ask, but it's always confused me is what do you actually get out of Scientology, or what do people think they're getting out of it?
I would imagine that this isn't unique to Scientology. I want to make sure everybody can hear me okay. Is this okay?
Yeah, I can hear you pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speak loud. I would imagine this isn't unique to Scientology at all. Think of it as a transcendent experience. I literally understand it as hypnosis now. But for example, when you're doing the training routines that they have, you're getting counseling on their soup cans, that e-meter, where you're talking to another psychotherapist and unburdening yourself. It's more than just unburdening yourself. And it's more than just doing a couple tools that you think are going to help you through your life. You're going into a trance state, which feels transcendent. L. Ron Hubbard reframes that and says you're having a godlike experience. I never experienced let me give you an example. When I was a kid, the first thing that I did was called the communication course. I didn't know that. All I knew is that they told me to sit in front of another person and stare at them for hours on end. When you do that hour after hour, week after week, past these drills, eventually your mind cracks. Well, first of all, I started to hallucinate. I did this with my sister, and she would turn into different people. The whole idea is to be there comfortably where you have no mind chatter, your ass isn't on fire, and you can just confront the other person. That's what they tell you. What it's doing is shutting down your mind, your critical thinking, and it's causing a lot of damage because you're going beyond the natural capacity. It's not normal to sit there and see your sister turn into a lizard or some freaking alien and start to hallucinate. Now you to keep going, keep going, keep going. Eventually, after a few weeks, this is my first experience in Scientology as a kid, I had a transcendent experience. I didn't realize that was being disassociated or hypnotized. I'd never felt that in my life before. So it was that euphoria you feel all throughout the drills that you do and the auditing. And they actually make every routine go up to that point. They call it having a win. So Scientologists are constantly going into this transcendent state, looking for that high through all of that. And it's all the same thing as just going into a trance. And if you've never experienced that before or really been into a hypnotic trance, it feels like you're meeting God. And if he reframes it where this is the spiritual power that only Scientology can offer, I didn't know that that kind of state existed or you could get it by yourself. And so I thought they had a new technology. They sell hypnotism as this new technology, and only L. Ron Hubbard invented it. As a kid, if you have no framework, you don't know any psychology, you're just growing up, and you have that experience, and you never get any outside information about what's happening, it causes an addiction, and you feel special because you know other people are having these incredible transcendent revelations in the state of mind.
Okay. That's a good answer. Now we got a bunch of people with their hands up, so I want to go ahead and go through them. So I have Carl first. You should be able to unmute yourself, Carl.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was wondering, Dave, I agree with you. I presume that if you belong to a religion, if you look at them somewhat more appropriately, they are cults. They're just big ones. And so when you're surrounded by people that all believe the same thing, in my case, I was in an Italian-American community, and they were all Catholics. So you get the same thing, only it's worse in some ways because you get it from the day you're born. And but so I was wondering, have you thought at all what I think what you're saying is that they've developed some more modern techniques to do, to enhance the probability that they can do it to an older person. So, can you speak to that?
You just spoke to all of it. That was really well said. That's exactly what they're doing now that you put it that way. This is what I said in a couple of the videos, is that Scientology, I totally agree with you on what you said about religions and belief systems in general like that. It's all the same thing, but Scientology, knowingly and consciously through L. Ron Hubbard, and he stole these tools from elsewhere, I think did set out to do exactly what you said. They had the most comprehensive package of mind control techniques and ways to implant religious belief systems on purpose that might make it unique amongst cults, religions. They're all the same thing. But it is unique in the fact that they can, like you said, maybe you're not born into it, but you can be captured by it just through the tools and techniques of manipulation and mind control that they possess in one area. It's pretty extraordinary. I would say that Scientology, because, they say it's a religion, and a religion is just a cult that's been around for a longer time and it's been accepted, right? So it's all the same thing. L. Ron Hubbard was a psychopath and recognized this. He was able to tune into how to manipulate people using religion. And also, he was an expert hypnotist, and he was also massively into the occult, which is a big part of where he was able to get these control mechanisms from. Does that answer your question at all?
Let me unmute again here. Yeah, and it does sort of partially. Maybe I'll let others get in and ask some questions, and then maybe I'll come back with some follow-up ones.
Good idea. Before we go on to the next question, I want to point out that your is YouTube channel, right? Yeah, YouTube channel. Dave posted that in the chat for you, Doug. So it's Dazed but Not Confused is the name, correct?
Mm-hmm, that's correct. Thank you.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to see the videos that you're referring to, they can go there. So next I have Dana and Jerry.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I'd just like to know in a nutshell what it is that Scientologists believe anyway. I mean, in a paragraph.
That's a great question. The first thing that popped into my mind is how L. Ron Hubbard Jr., his son, described it on television when asked that same question. Just put it into a paragraph. It's really difficult to do that. But here is their belief system. 76 trillion years ago, Thetans, which are our souls, which is who we are, willed themselves into being and created this universe to have a game. Ever since then, we're all powerful beings, but we've been trapped in bodies through, in order to have a game, a Thetan or a being has to unknow that he's all powerful and started the game in order to have obstacles. Hence, the game comes into being 76 trillion years ago. We've had amnesia. We forgot who we are. Trapped in these bodies. We don't remember the all-powerful beings that we are. Through Scientology auditing and processing, we undo all the trauma through the games, and then we remember who we are, spiritual immortal beings. And then the game, we can create something different.
Thank you.
Okay, I have Senna and Alex.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of other people are wondering what happened to make you realize that this was all nonsense. You talk about it all happening in one day. What was the event that triggered it, or what were you doing at that time?
Yeah, that's a great question. By the miracle of God, because this was accidental, a friend from my acting class, a friend who knew I was a Scientologist and I was in a cult, had the nerve to drop off a book on my doorstep called Combating Cult Mind Control by Steve Hassan. This is the number one best-selling book on cults. Because of my programming, this wouldn't work on somebody else. I realized subconsciously I was getting ready to kind of wake up maybe. So the timing was right. And also because of the programming, I wasn't going to look at it. In fact, I was really mad at him. I called him up and told him to go fuck himself. And I was also going to call the church, because you report anything like that friends do. These are called suppressive people that have anything at all negative to say about Scientology. I was going to go report him down to Celebrity Center, which is the Scientology place nearest to me that day. I just got lazy. I was sitting there, the book's sitting there, hours are passing, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to laugh at this thing and just see what this asshole walked off. Within 20 minutes of reading that book, because he had this thing called the BITE model, stands for behavior, information, thought, and emotion. These are the 4 different ways that any control group manipulates people. For example, one of those is information. Scientology controlled information, and I recognized that right away. I never thought about that before. He had this model at the very beginning of this book that within 20 minutes, I knew at the very least that L. Ron Hubbard was a liar. I was in a cult. Oh my God, I'm about to lose my family. This took years to process this one thing that happened that day. But right away, I felt an unbelievable, I can't even describe it, but panic isn't the word. I just knew that I was in a situation that was foreign to me, and I was in deep shit.
Wow.
Thank you. Did you get back to the person who lent you the book?
Yeah, we're still friends. He dropped that book off more like not necessarily out of friendship, but just to kind of like a cult member or whatever. But I do thank him. We've remained friends. And, I thanked him a million times because he's in my acting class before this COVID happened. We, see each other every day. And he finally just told me, dude, just shut up about it, man, because he didn't like hearing about it. I was like, I get it. He's like, he won't take any credit for it. But if he didn't drop that book off, I thought about this a lot when I've woken up a couple of years later, because I knew something was wrong for the last couple of years. You never look at Scientology. You think it's you, this, that, anything but Scientology. You can't see what's right in front of your face. So I wonder if I ever would have questioned it if he just didn't happen to maybe kind of in a get back at me kind of way, drop the book off and make me wrong, as they would say in Scientology. He did me a favor, which I could never pay him. And I've said thank you a million times to him. Because he changed that one act. He changed my entire life, on the deepest level. He completely altered my course by doing that one thing.
Wow. It's actually kind of surprising that just one little thing like that could draw, get you out of the cold. Because I feel like most people would have not read the book or read it and just ignored everything that was in it or something like that. It seems extremely rare that would happen.
Definitely. The part that you say about if they ignored it, if they read it, I wonder about that, because what they wouldn't do is read it. If they did read it, I wonder, the biggest problem, my man, is getting someone to just read it. Look at the information about Scientology. Look, he was a liar. Look, this doesn't add up. You're so programmed that anybody that even slightly thinks anything's untrue about Scientology, you don't listen to them. Your mind goes into the mode where they're an idiot, oppressive person. They're called thought-stopping techniques. So anytime somebody says something critical, you're not sitting there thinking. You just go into a shutdown immediately, period, end of story. So there's no way to get through or to get somebody. My parents are never going to get out of Scientology. I said in one of the videos, they're in so deep, and you get so deep into Scientology. My dad's at the top of the bridge. He's been in for 40 years that you can't get out. In fact, if he did get out and he suddenly got shocked into awakening, it's such a powerful experience. I was kind of prepared for it because I was in my mid-30s and I could handle the emotional trauma because I was an actor. So I had a place that prevented me from killing myself. If my dad woke up, I think it would kill him. I think he would have a heart. I don't think it's possible, for example. So anyways, I don't know if I answered the question or if I just rambled, but did I answer the question at all?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely gave some good info, but I'm going to move on to other people with their hands up because there's a lot of interest. So Kanita, there you go.
I was wondering if I could get sort of a glossary. It seems like in Scientology, they redefine some words, like you'll hear somebody say something like clear. That means something to them that it doesn't to a normal person. And, awakening and things like that. And this dude, Xenu, what's with him?
Great questions. That redefinition of words that you mentioned, by the way, is a classic mind control technique that's been around forever. So we have a dictionary that's 1,000 words, and some of these words have many, many different definitions. So it's a mind fuck just by redefining the words. And that sets you into this new reality so that you can't think outside in the human language, which is all part of the mind control. So that was a good point that you brought up there. Some of these words, clear, let me do a human translation. So clear, there's clear in the reactive mind. The goal of going clear is to try to get rid of your reactive mind. He defines it as all the moments of pain and unconsciousness that you've had in your life, which is, you get knocked down and you're unconscious. The content that people are talking around you during that is what's fucking up your entire life. That happens, you're drunk, you pass out. All the dialogue, the sensory perceptions that you're picking up, that unconscious content is what's ruining your entire life until you get up to clear. This is the mind chatter and the self-doubt. You get rid of that through their auditing, you will be clear, i.e. a being who no longer has his own reactive mind. A human translation is that's a subconscious mind you can't erase or get rid of. He says you're trying to actually erase the subconscious, which sounds ridiculous. You're trying to erase its reactive mind. So he stole that from psychotherapy and just redefined it, like he said. And the goal of clear is to get rid of these moments of pain and unconsciousness. So it's not a very deep process. How many times do you get knocked out in your life? 10 or 20 times? He also says when you're in the womb, and if your mother was fucking around, or all the content that was going on in the arguments between family members, recalling this as a baby. So you learn to kind of hate your parents. I can't tell you how many times with this mind fuck, I was looking at my parents and how evil they were, all the unconscious content they were putting into my mind before I was even born. That's an example of the level of psychosis that believing in the reactive mind, which was my only frame of reference as a kid. This is what I grew up as my basic psychology believing. So the reactive mind, these moments of pain and unconsciousness, give you another Scientology word, or called engrams. Another Scientology word, and then a human translation would be the main goal after you go clear is to get up to the operating Thetan levels. Thetan is another word for soul. So if you're operating as a soul, you have all of your spiritual powers back. He said that by the time you get up to the top of the bridge, which is operating Thetan level 8, which costs about $1 million+ to get up to, that you will be at cause over matter, energy, space, time, form, and event. In other words, you will not have a relationship with God, be in union with him in any way. He didn't believe in God. I'm not saying I do. I'm just giving you the cosmology. You are God. So the ego explosion, the level of narcissism that you see in someone like Tom Cruise, and what I had, the sociopathy. I said Scientology, take a normal damaged person and make them into a secondary sociopath. That's what it does. It shuts your heart and emotions down, all the while you think you're going spiritually free. And by the time you get up to the top of that bridge, OT8, like my dad is at, you are dead inside. There's no, whatever my dad was before, and I saw this change happen the night he came home, and it got worse. Whatever you want to call it, his personality, his soul, who he was as a person, that was gone, and it was like an artificial intelligence or a robot. That's exactly what it's. I mean, I haven't communicated with my parents for 10 years. They we can't talk. Disconnection policy, but it makes you into a robot. I know I ended up rambling, but there's some of the Scientology words. Xenu comes up at OT level 3, about halfway through those operating Thetan levels. A lot of people put stress on that in particular and say they know that story because it's South Park. But that's not a big major thing. There's 3 milestones, and that's the second one. The first milestone is get up to clear and erase your reactive mind. Then the second milestone is where you meet Xenu. That's the one everybody focuses on. But most Scientologists never get up there. Only like 5% do, so they don't know what the fuck you're talking about when you say Xenu. And then the next milestone is OT8, where you're going to be at cause over matter, energy, space, and time.
Okay. Can't tell if Kanita is talking, but I think that was a pretty good rundown real quick. But before I move on to the next person, just because you brought it up and didn't totally describe it, you talked about disconnection and that you had to disconnect with your family, or your family disconnected with you, I should say, right? Can you explain what that is and what happened?
Yeah, my situation is a little bit unique. I'll try to break this down as succinctly as possible. My parents never officially disconnected from me, and I haven't officially gotten my SP declare, suppressive. Somebody like me, especially that's speaking out on YouTube, this is not normal. My parents, I believe, because I don't talk to them anymore, only email here and there. They have a policy called good roads, good weather, which means you don't talk anything. If I'm a suppressive person, which they know in their minds, so they haven't disconnected from me like they're supposed to, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But they good roads, good weather me, meaning if we have to communicate about something, just email here and there, not how are you doing, no love, just strictly business, right? That's the only communication I've had with them for the last 10 years or so. What I suspect is why they haven't disconnected from me is because the reason I got in an abusive relationship, because that's what I call it, with a cult leader, with a narcissist, with a sociopath. I don't have the healthiest family situation. They put it that way. So I believe my parents simply want to hold on to me and control me, particularly my mother. So I had to disconnect from them, so to speak, to get them out of my life, because I was always susceptible to going back into that cult. Even when it's hard to explain, man, but even when Scientologists are very sly on what they say. So my parents never outright said, we hate you, fuck you, hey, they always say, we never forced you to be a Scientologist. The real deal is, that's what you tell yourself. That's what I told myself as a Scientologist. The real deal is they need me, as any Scientologist does, to be a Scientologist like them. The fact that I left and they knew that, they were pretending like they're not disconnecting, or that's okay. Hey, you can do what you want. They actually ended up manipulating me and giving me the silent treatment and all sorts of tactics that the cult puts them up to, as well as themselves, that actually almost drove me to suicide. When I most needed them, they not only kind of turned their back and wouldn't listen when I was crying, please pick up the phone, we need to talk about. I couldn't get through to them at all. I threatened to kill them. I threatened to kill myself. I did anything I could to get them to snap out of this hypnosis and listen and hear what they're doing to me and to themselves. That took a long time to figure out, that you can't talk somebody out of this. And again, I don't know if I ended up rambling, but my situation is unusual. They're supposed to disconnect from you, and most Scientologists, especially, speaking out about it, would get the SP declare, and we can never speak to you again. It's fine by me. My parents would have to change themselves to get back in my life, because they are the ones that led to the cult. You grow up in an abusive, or you have a narcissistic family member, and you could possibly turn into that to yourself, and then maybe go into another version of that where they introduce you to the same dynamic in a cult. If I didn't have the family dynamic I did, I never would have wound up in Scientology. It wouldn't have been something I would have gotten into myself. That's what God did.
Wow. Sounds like a pretty rough, part of your life there. I'm glad you made it through.
It's okay too, man. I'm okay. I don't need sympathy. I learned a lot from the experience. I don't regret it. So, yeah. I mean, I talk about this stuff, but I'm okay. You know what I mean?
That's good. Good. We have a number of hands up, but because you're defining stuff and want to continue just a little bit more, because somebody asked if you would define auditing. It's another one a lot of people don't quite understand.
Sure. Am I on?
Yep.
First of all, just the word itself, auditing. This is all part of the hypnosis tricks and the redefinition of words, and to kind of get inside your subconscious. When you think of auditing, obviously, what's the first thing you think of? Something kind of bad, right? You're going to be audited by the tax collectors. We chose words like that on purpose. I was an expert hypnotist. I want to say something real quick about what she mentioned about the word clear. Clear is a word that goes into your subconscious. You hear it 1,000 times. So it's actually, that's part of how you get rid of your family, how you stop projecting information. You're literally clearing everything from your mind and replacing it around how it's stuck in mind inside your head. So I'm sorry, I knew I was going to get off track. Hit me with the word that you wanted me to go with.
Auditing.
Yeah. So auditing is, so I just wanted to say that, right? It's already, all these words are repeated 1,000 times. So it's already kind of, getting in your head. Auditing is this counseling that you do on the soup cans where you sit across from another, they call it a psychotherapist, but they're a hypnotist. And what they do is they put you into a trance state and implant false memories into you, up to and including going into past lives. I had thousands of past lives, hundreds of past lives that I believed in through this auditing process. And in a minute, that I realized, it took a long time, every single one of them false. So auditing is the process where you feel like they charge you thousands of dollars. It's very, very expensive. It's also the gold mine of what you want to do in Scientology. You want to go up the training side of the bridge, that's 50% of your gains. And the psychotherapy or auditing is another 50% of your gains. But the addicting part is these freaking soup cans where you got an electric current running through your body, which is all part of putting you to sleep. I can't tell you how many times I would just actually go to sleep in session. And 20 minutes later, I'd wake up and the auditor would be sitting there just staring at me, waiting for me with his TRs in. That's another one. You learn communication drills to be an auditor and hypnotize another person. So that's all it is, man. They claim it's some special thing. I got blown out of my mind so many times. The process, just to give you an example of it so it's not vague, a question they might ask you and have asked you on one of the grades or the stats. Look around this room and find something that's really real to you. Spot a spot in this space. Put your hands up to mine, follow them, and contribute to their motion. These are examples of the tricky kind of questions. If you ask somebody, look around, and they're repeated over and over. Repetition is the greatest form of mind control. So, and it can get into your head. So an example would be, look around here and find something really real to you. That light. Auditor says, okay, thank you. Look around here and find something that's really real to you. That lamp. Thank you. Look around. This goes on and on and on. What do you think would happen after answering that question like that for 2 hours with the auditor, like a robot looking right into your eyes? Well, what happened to me is I went into this transcendent state that I'm talking to you about. If you're going beyond the mind's natural capacity to do this kind of shit, I went into an ecstatic high, and you start having revelations, or what they call cognitions, about life in general. I'm sitting here spotting spots around the room or find something that's really real to me. And by the way, that question is designed to activate your imagination or subconscious, trying to figure out what the fuck is he actually asking. That's a weird question to ask to somebody. That kind of throws your left brain out to try to figure it all out. That's how this thing works. Not to get too technical, but this is all done knowingly by L. Ron Hubbard. He was an expert hypnotist first and foremost, and he knew this. So that is how you get into that transcendent state. And very interesting things happen, my man. And you attribute Scientology technology having a revelation of, I just realized how to handle such and such problems better, or about kind of the cosmology of the universe. Just finding something that was really real to me for 2 hours. You've got to try this Scientology shit. It'll blow your fucking mind, dude. That's an example of it.
Wow. Again, everybody with their hands up, please be patient. Got another one for you to define, because Dave says he's a declared SP. Can you define what SP is?
Dave has achieved the status that I should have gotten way, way before him. And I'm actually fucking jealous that he has that, because I would love to get my SP declared. These assholes still keep sending me mail. Just give it to me and stop fucking with me. Anyways, so Dave is a declared SP, meaning the church, quote unquote, of Scientology, has decided that because he speaks out about him, when he speaks out about him on his channel, if he had just made a comment on the street to somebody and the Scientologist overheard that, he'd probably be an SP. But SP stands for a suppressive person, and he defined that because he was a sociopath. He had to, like any cult leader, say that he wasn't. So he would talk about the SP, human terms, is the sociopath, the 5% of the population that has no conscience, that's anything that, he had a whole list of characteristics that he stole from like the hair test, right? And just turned it into his own chorus and said, this is the guy you have to watch out for. And this is anybody that talks bad about Scientology, anybody that doesn't agree with it, anybody that says anything about Ron Hubbard or David Scavenge, anybody that watched Leah Remini's show on Scientology is a suppressive person. And me, especially, leaving my family and talking out about it on YouTube is massively. So basically, by Dave being a declared SP, everybody in the Scientology world knows that he's an evil. And by the way, as soon as when you're under that mind control and you believe all this shit, the way I looked at SPs and my friends who were really good people, I found out since. But when I was in that mindset, I thought they were really bad. If I tried to describe to that friend of mine, Jamie, that dropped that book off, how much he was in danger. The psychopath, my man, and the way that I actually judged the depth of level that I was judging people kind of scares me sometimes, because it really makes you hate, and it really separates you out from the real world. And all somebody has to do is watch Leah Remini's show, and I would have known that person is fucking evil. It really, really turns you, reverses everything in your mind, in your world. And I did make up a lot of damage, or just say sorry a million times to my friends, and they're like, dude, it's fine, we get it. Just because I felt they didn't realize how deeply I was judging them. And if they were able to jump inside my head, it probably would have scared the shit out of them.
Wow. Thanks. Finally, let's get back to some of the people with their hands up. So, Marion?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I have two questions that you've already somewhat mentioned, but I'd like a little more elaboration. One is the one that you just, or Kanita has a comment in the chat room anyway. I was wondering about the whole money end of things with Scientology because, well, I had a boyfriend very briefly once, many years ago, and he was getting into Scientology, and he suddenly asked me, like do I have $20,000 or something, So I know it's very expensive, but I don't know what ever happened to him. But what happens to people who might like to be inside, be a Scientologist, become a Scientologist, go through the ranks, whatever, and they just don't have the money? Is there some place for that in there? I mean, how does what you have to pay affect the whole operation, I guess is what I'm asking. The other question is, so you told us a little about your relationship or non-relationship with your parents, and I'm just wondering about other members, because you mentioned your sister of your family. Have you maintained at least something more of a relationship with them? And if you have, is that because they're just still wanting to be close to you, but they're still in Scientology, or because they never were, because they dropped out? And I guess I could extend that to including some friends that you've had. In other words, your relationships in general, beyond just your parents. How's that going? Okay.
They're really good questions.
What's about at the money angle, and what about the other relationships?
Am I on? Do I have to? Okay. Those are really great questions, Marion. Thanks for that. Wow, you just, as they say in Scientology, you re-stimulated a lot of stuff.
Sorry.
No, it's really great stuff that you were talking about there. So they'll take anybody, okay? But they want the rich people, and they say that they want to make the able more able. That's the line from L. Ron Hubbard, to put this in perspective. But remember, he's what you call a sociopath, a psychopath, narcissist, whatever. He didn't have a conscience. And so he'll take the whole coterie of people. If you're poor, they'll simply put you to work on the Sea Org and have you sign a billion-year contract and do free slave labor. And by the way, they do human trafficking. This is totally illegal. And they'll take all sorts of immigrants and kids from 8 to 9 to 10 and literally get them to sign a billion-year contract, put them on the rehabilitation project board, the boot camp type thing, to get them under the control they're going to be under for the rest of their lives. And then they're going to be a Sea Org member. And who knows where their parents are, and who knows where the government is that's supposed to, call this out and all this shit. It's absolutely insane if you just look at it with no blinders on. There are human trafficking operations all over the world, and there they sit as the celebrities go there and don't everything's kept compartmentalized, I want to say too. So nobody knows what's going on. I wasn't aware of this, and I saw these kids that were Sea Org members in a very different light because of the reframing that goes on. So anyways, they will take anybody. They want the richest. And the way it starts out is subtly. It's a $50 course or a $100 course. Or, hey, just buy Dianetics to get you started, to rope you in. That's the cheese. And then it gets super expensive as you go up. But of course, it's subtle, and they don't just hit you with that right away. Now, if you do have a lot of money and you take to the manipulation tactics, they will try to sell you up to clear or the whole fucking thing, as much as they can squeeze out of you. But generally, like any snake or sociopath, they're going to, bring you in with the love bombing and the cheese. $50 course, no big deal, just a couple times a week. sitting there a couple times a week doing the training routines, the communication course, the hypnosis is going in, you're getting more suggestible, but you're just hanging around the environment, you're not a Scientologist. That's why it's dangerous to even fuck with it or even take that personality test or just do their communication course. Stay the fuck away. Because if you don't know how your mind works, anybody can be taken in by these techniques if you don't know what's happening. So if you have no money or you're a kid that they'll try to grab, they'll do free slave labor. If you don't have a lot of money, they think you're able, they will, like my father and like me, try to actually help you make money in the real world so you can fucking give it to Scientology. I just said this in the last video I did. My dad actually ended up becoming more affluent because of Scientology. And this can happen, not because, let me rephrase that, not because of Scientology, but they have tools and some of it's illegal. And sometimes you get involved, Scientologists get involved in pyramid schemes, whatever, but they will really focus on you, give you the targets and goals and the tools. And it feels like you got a partner that really gives a shit about you and is helping you with your whole life. So they can motivate you, get you to all the success that you're having through Scientology. Obviously, it's healthy. It's another reason my dad wouldn't be able to get out, because he's been so successful, and you attribute everything positive that happens in your life to Scientology, and everything negative that happens is on you. So there is a whole mind fuck about how they seem to help you. They're not. They're doing the opposite. You attribute it to L. Ron Hubbard's special technology and all the love and help that they're giving you. And then when you get to that level, they say, give us all your money. And then you're into it anyways. They benefit by helping you be successful. Hey, we'll help you get to the next level in your acting career. We'll help you get your business to the next level. Because we know if we can get you into this, you'll not only love Scientology because it's working, you'll love us and trust us because we're helping you. And then that's how you get sucked in. Again, it's a whole trap that if you don't, I'm trying to lay out the whole thing on these videos so people will understand what they're getting into when they just go do the communication course, those training routines. Because there's also a lot of ex-Scientologists, real quick, that think the training routines and the introductory things are good and the rest of Scientology is bad. I'm trying to dismantle that idea. That's not true. That's the bait, the cheese, the love bomb, and you get your ass in there. And those are the hypnosis techniques to soften you up. The rest of it's going to take shape. As far as the family goes, great question, because I know my sister loves me. I love my sister dearly. We do have a good bond, especially, we fought like any other siblings, but as we got older, we just have a mutual respect for her. She's a very good, powerful soul. I love her. She's completely codependent and manipulated by my family. She wasn't able to break away. Didn't really take too much to Scientology because she was the golden child. I was the black sheep, so they kind of hammered me more on getting Scientology because they thought it was going to help. My parents aren't evil people necessarily. My mom is what I'd call a narcissist, and my dad just is kind of stuck in a situation. So it's because of this family dynamic and control where I can't really have this relationship that me and my sister would naturally have. My mom, manipulating, keeping that all in order. And it's funny, Scientology is just sort of the secondary thing that came into our lives because of the family dynamic. I think my dad got into it probably trying to save himself from my mom or something, or who knows. I don't really know, I'm just guessing. But Scientology just came in because of our family dynamic, and that still stays there. So I am not allowed to have this relationship with my sister. It's complicated. And as anybody knows, when you have a controlling narcissistic mother, it's going to cause a lot of problems and separations between those that aren't, that are just trying to get along. So like I said, I not only had to get Scientology out of my head, but I had to get away from them. But I had to understand my family, and I actually had to kind of get away from them. They weren't going to get away from me, which is the normal thing, So in general, it completely destroys people's relationship. They have disconnection if you disagree. Like in the family, I wasn't able to, because I didn't like it for about 10 years. It took them a long time to get my mind. But I had to shut the fuck up about it because my dad's into it, and now my mom's getting into it. And you just knew to be quiet about it. And so I didn't even know what it was either. I didn't know what it was until I woke up out of it. Didn't have the internet. You couldn't type in Xenu on the internet. I didn't know about the Time magazine article about Scientology. I remember seeing it one day, and it just didn't occur to me to open it up because I knew Scientology was good. My dad was into it, whatever. It just went right over my head. Anyways, long story there. If one person gets into Scientology in a family, it will completely destroy and put everybody under the thumb of Scientology.
Okay. We got a lot of people with their hands up, so I want to move on. Keith. There you go. I can't hear you, Keith, even though it says you're unmuted.
Hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you, Doug, for coming and talking. A very interesting topic. And Ian Lawrence Wright's book, Going Clear, he documents a small family's, the extent that they have to go to escape. And I was just wondering, did you have to sneak out? And did you have to take any steps to avoid being forcefully brought back in?
A great question. Again, my situation's a little unusual in that, as they didn't have to come after me, expect me to fair game. I was going to kind of take myself out. I was suicidal for a few years. I went from having a successful acting career, a loving family, friends, everything, losing my mind, literally, in a day. I never was the same after my friend dropped that book off. Living out of my car, losing my career, my mind, everything. I wasn't a threat to them. I'm sitting here at halfway houses or just trying to survive every day, dude, because I described it in my latest video as it's almost safer to be integrated and to accept Scientology than to wake up from it, because you can just carry on with your life. This is something where I had to go down to the core of my belief system, not just in Scientology, and redefine everything. And that took a decade. I'm still working on it, but I'm here now, and I feel so unlike a Scientologist. I'm a different person. And you do have to work that hard on it, by the way, because once that mind virus gets inside your mind, there's a lot of ex-Scientologists, a lot, that are still thinking and therefore acting like Scientologists. It takes a lot of work to get that out of your mind. I wasn't a threat to them. They never really fair game. I've gotten a little threats on the YouTube channel too, but you know what? I don't fear them whatsoever. I don't know how to explain it. I just don't expect anything. The climate's different too, my man. When I came out in 2008, Anonymous also came out. That's when I woke up, January 2008. Anonymous came down and started kicking their ass a little bit. And then we got Lawrence Wright's book. When Going Clear came out, and then Leah Remedy, each one of these things that was coming out, each one that had the balls to speak out on this shit. As I'm sitting here as a program Scientologist studying everything I can in my little apartment, while these people are speaking out, Going Clear came out. Each one of these things caused a huge burden to come off for us ex-members, because we no longer had to explain it. I was rambling about Scientology in my acting class to anybody that listened. I couldn't stop talking about it because it's part of getting it out of my head. I had to do this. I would apologize. I'm sorry I'm going to ramble, but I have to do this. And I didn't, by the way, they programmed me not to see a psychologist and all that, but I did eventually get over that. And I did go see a psychologist, but I needed to work this out on my own, long story short. So anyways, mostly they will come after people. Back in the day, if they speak out like I'm doing, but because of each burden being removed, the public becoming more aware, and just it's totally different now. However, I don't want to underplay it either. If they try anything, I know their tactics and they train me well. I also don't have a lot of skeletons in my closet that they can fuck with, and they're also subtle, so they might be planning an attack a year down from the road. I just know what to expect. So that's how they play. They play dirty. And also, they will fair game people that are more high profile. I'm nobody, man, but I imagine Leah and stuff have been their fair gaming that they speak about. I'm sure they get harassed all the time, but thankfully, because a lot of people had the balls, and I love that Lawrence Wright documentary, by the way, that Going Clear movie. I've watched 1,000 fucking times, man, and each time I'd watch it, it would keep deprogramming. The just having it out in the public has fucked them up a lot in terms of being able to get away with shit. And hopefully the climate in general is changing and people are waking up, and they might come down someday, or maybe not, kind of, because they always come back, right? They look like they're going to get smashed, and then they're amazing at being able to manipulate the court system and all the law. They're just absolute master manipulators. So until they're actually gone, we'll never know, because they always come back right when you think you have them.
Is there a role that the government should play?
Well, they kind of work in cahoots with the government. That's one of the things that I'm talking to about on my videos. Just think about it. Why wouldn't they have been taken down by now? You and I and everybody else knows that they're human trafficking people, hypnotizing them, robbing of their money, their family. It's super obvious what's happening. I don't know if we have time to go into great detail on that, my man, but I spent a lot of time researching that, and I lived it too. So I have a pretty good, clear picture of that. Not saying there's a grand conspiracy, but let me put it this way. Scientology is expert at getting people and government officials and stuff in their pocket, and there might be a mutual reason to have them still be there. It's a deep question you're asking, man.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Dick Hewitson.
Hi, I am unmuted. Okay. I have two questions. One is, and this is a common thing we all do, you keep referring to they, and it would appear to me that there must be some kind of hierarchy or some kind of ruling group or whatever, and I wonder if you could just explain that to some extent. And my other question is, while you were in Scientology, how do you relate to the other people in your life, such as fellow actors and so forth? Are they aware that you were a Scientologist? And what was that dynamic like?
First of all, while the second one real quick, I hid it quite a bit from my friends. I was proud of being a Scientologist, and sometimes I would disseminate. That means try to get them in, and they also really want you to do that. And you really want to talk about it to your friends, but you're also aware of the stigma. So depending on your balls or your nerve or whatever, I would have to see if somebody, I have to suss somebody out or feel them out to decide if I was going to actually tell them about that secret part of my life. You're two people, man. You're a Scientologist that can't wait to talk and speak the language around all the people, the celebrity center and the Scientologists. But when you get out in the real world, you put on the Dr. Hyde mask and you pretend that you're not. So you literally have two personalities, and that's part of any cult. It splits you into two people. Actually, it gives you multiple personality when you get up to the OT levels, and it actually literally splits you into many personalities, which I'm also going to talk about. But to keep it simple, you don't really in general talk about it, and yet you will disseminate to people in a very slow way after you feel them out. Now, the second question you're asked, I want to be very careful with why I'm laying out these videos with evidence and backing it up with what I've learned. I didn't learn any of this stuff that anybody else hasn't already figured out. I'm just trying to put it out in a step-by-step way. So I don't want to get, throw out the word Illuminati and, all that crap. But let me put it this way. I described in one of the videos that Scientology is a secret society. We could call it a pyramid scheme or whatever, but secret society is a better word because it's a pyramid. The only guy that knew that the whole thing was a con, and also he was working for other people. It wasn't just L. Ron Hubbard's creation, which again, I'm going to back up with evidence and stuff because I don't think this stuff's been talked about. I don't want to be called an Illuminati conspiracist. I want to back up what I'm saying, like with actual hard evidence. But to keep it simple, at the top, L. Ron Hubbard was the only one that knew the extent of this control system and what it was about. The front group, it's not there to obviously do spirituality. It's a front group for human trafficking and other activities, to keep it simple, right? Only he was kind of aware of that. Everybody else down the pyramid is kept, as you know, kept compartmentalized. So if you're a newbie coming in at the bottom, you're going to think it's basic tools for life. They're going to sell you, oh, this is new technology. Wow, what's this hypnosis transcendent experience? Let's go up the rest of the bridge. You have no idea that you stepped into a pre-planned game that's guaranteed to lead to hell. That's how I describe it, because it's all compartmentalized. Now, by the time you get up to the top as a public, you will know most of the secrets, but again, not all, because again, only L. Ron Hubbard and their secret CIA police, which is called OSA, Office of Special Affairs, they're structured just like the world, my friend. So if you have one or a couple people at the top that know the real game. And information is kept purposely compartmentalized, like any secret society, like the Freemasons or whatever. You dole it out a little bit at a time. You never really get the whole picture, even when you get to the top. But you know a lot. You see a lot of the dirty tricks. You're aware of the secret CIA, operation they have, OSA and shit. You're kind of getting into that top level. You're so hypnotized, so into the game, so mind controlled. They have so much blackmail material on you. You're so owned by them in every way. You're not going to get out and start spilling the beans. And if you do, you're all fucked up. You have to get over the mind control. This is why I question people like Mike Rinder and stuff who are out there being celebrities within, a couple of years, when he was the head of the Office of Special Affairs for 25 years. That man knows a lot. And I don't quite get it when it comes to Rinder. But like I said, the world itself is basically structured the same way. So if you just have a 9-to-5 job and you keep your head down and you don't question too much, you will only know so much about the world. If you get trapped into one of these cults or secret societies like I do, and I talked in one of the videos how it kind of runs in our family, and my parents and their shit was involved in this shit, you can get a lot of insight as to how the power structures in this world work. You know what I mean? Does that answer your question? Because you're asking a very deep question, and you're asking something that will require a lot of evidence to back up what I'm trying to say.
Thank you.
All right. Real quick, still got more people up, but with their hands up. You mentioned Mike Rinder. I believe he is working with Leah Remini on her series. And for those people who are interested, I think they just added that to Netflix. I think it's still on Netflix, and you can see there's 3 seasons. And I think I don't know if they have there's the extra as well. They're all on, I think they're all on Netflix for anybody interested. I've seen the whole thing. I highly recommend it if anybody's interested and has Netflix. But Kanita, your turn for your question.
I was wondering whether Scientology ever masqueraded as something else, and what they have in common with other similar things. The first one that came to my mind was the prosperity gospel. And as a mind control technique, I was wondering whether Trump was using it for all of those chants that he has the people doing in his rallies.
Am I on?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if he's doing it consciously or whatever, but a lot of politicians, Obama and stuff, yes, we can. These are all mind control chants that any political person uses to try to get into the head of the public and get them, that's like mind control 101. I don't know. I don't like to talk too much about politics or Trump or Biden and all that, because it's like talking about religion with someone. Everybody has all their opinions. You know what I think about all of it? I think it's all a con. And even as a kid, I would look at 2 politicians. Do you want dipshit or psychopath A or psychopath B? It's all the same thing. The world gets shittier and shittier. Control gets more and more. Nothing ever changes. To me, it's a freaking puppet show. So I don't really have much. I follow all the shit just to see what's going on, because I feel like an outsider eating popcorn watching a comedy act. But because this presidential debate that we just had recently was like watching 2 6-year-olds. I mean, I couldn't, I grew up where there was at least some dignity in politics and stuff, and now it's just mind control chants and 2 narcissists going at it. I mean, it's just retarded to me. So I don't really have much to say in that. I don't like to get too involved in that. And then the second question was, to Scientology, I didn't quite understand it. Are you talking about, do they use front groups, which they do use to rope people in? Or are they trying to, you said, masquerade or seem like there's some other kind of group like the one you mentioned? Could you clarify what you were asking?
Sorry, she was muted. Just a sec. You should be able to unmute.
She's trying. She's hard at work.
There we go.
I was particularly the prosperity gospel. I've particularly seen it on TV, and it reminded me of the kind of tactics that he uses.
Am I on?
Yep.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that prosperity gospel. That rings a bell. But what you said there, they all use the same technique, all of the cults. Charles Manson learned his techniques from Dianetics when he was in prison. And Keith Raniere grabbed a bunch from the Nexium cult, literally lifted L. Ron Hubbard's terminology and his mind control techniques. What you're dealing with a cult or whatever, religion, same thing. You're basically dealing with a sociopath who learns hypnosis or ways to manipulate people because they kind of see the world differently and they don't have a conscience, so they can do all this shit. And they always, like a book, it's almost like they do it unconsciously, I learned, but it's almost like they have the same damn playbook. You can pick any cult, any religion, and it's the same damn thing, same technique. There's no variation. It's the only variation is the extremity. Scientology has more of them in one place, a more package of mind control manipulation techniques in one place than maybe some of the other ones, but I haven't studied all of them, so I can be talking out of my ass. I'm just saying, like, compared to other ones, it's just levels of degree. From my opinion, it's just my opinion.
Okay, cool.
Thanks.
I'll clarify again, because you brought up Nexium and Keith Raniere. For those who are wondering, there's a really good series on HBO about them for anybody who wants to see that. So that's on HBO, which is paid for. And it's, I think, more expensive than Netflix at the moment, but I strongly recommend it. I want to move on to Herman. He has his hand up next. I'm trying to let you unmute. You should be able to unmute, Herman.
Okay, thank you. I was wondering, does Scientology have a position on getting medical aid? Do they have a position on getting tested for coronavirus or taking a vaccine if and when it becomes available? What do they say about those things?
Do I have to wait for the box to show, or can I just start talking after?
No, you can start talking.
Great question. I don't, they have a publicity campaign going on right now saying that they're pretending like they're all, we need to do all this stuff for the coronavirus. I just checked out their website the other day. They have endless videos about wash your hands, this, that, and the other thing. However, I don't think they believe in any of this stuff for real. They're always just putting on a front. What they do is any disaster, and this coronavirus being the latest one, they will get on board with whatever the narrative is and then pump it to try to suck in vulnerable people. This is why they show up at disaster relief parties when there's a hurricane, at 9/11. They use those vulnerable situations in which to do their techniques on people. Touch assist, which real briefly is where they do their stupid little touching people and shit. Like, there's people in 9/11 that need real medical help, and their volunteer ministers are sent to these disasters to touch people's bodies and shit. I don't want to get off on a tangent, but they basically jump on board with the latest disaster when it comes to the corona thing. No, I don't think they believe in it, but I think that they pretend like they do to rope people in. Now, medically speaking, they will tell you that they're auditing their hypnosis, which they don't call it that, will handle all your medical shit. By the time you're an OT8 especially, or at least by the time you're clear, let alone at the top of the bridge, you're promised subtly, because L. Ron Hubbard got in trouble for, saying it can handle medical shit. So we had to take that out of the way really quick in the 50s before they shut his shit down. They will claim that auditing and their techniques can handle all their shit. So, I think my dad got cancer along 10, 12 years ago or something. And luckily, he had the sense to go get it handled. But that's not common, because so many people have died of cancer, or all they had to do was get some freaking medical treatment, and they're promised, and they are true believers, man. I would have done the same thing, and I did. You ignore medical conditions, even as serious as that, because you know that the next auditing session is going to relieve the mental block that's causing that. Everything in Scientology, they say, is mental. 70% of all your ills are psychosomatic, of the mind. They'll actually tell you it's 100% the deeper you get into this. So there's no need, when you have a bump on your body, or you feel like you're dying, or you have a fever, You just need to get into your next auditing session to handle it. That's standard, but some people, even people that are deeply brainwashed, will have enough sense to go down to the doctor and not do that. And they're not, they walk both lines, so they don't want to get in trouble and sued if you accidentally die. So they really believe that the auditing will handle that. But yeah, they will tell you sometimes to go down to the doctor and get that handle. And they have all sorts of ways to do legal documents and this, that, and the other thing to kind of toe the medical line, and so they don't get fucking sued. But on the other hand, they're encouraging you. That's all just for the government and whatever. We know what we're really doing. Put that into perspective too, my man. It's a different world with different laws. And one of the things that was attractive, at least for me, about Scientology, is that it was anti-establishment and government while you're actually in the most Orwellian government of all, without knowing it. He made it seem like government's bad, this is bad, medicine's bad, everything's fucking bad but Scientology technology. And we believe that. And so there's a very antagonistic attitude, to use their word, toward anything that's outside of us. We have the answer. The government doesn't know about this auditing technology that would handle their reactive minds so they wouldn't act like assholes. We need to get this shit and this technology out there. And until we do, the planet's going to be full of reactive minds, because you see everything through the filter of everybody around you has a reactive mind. And until they become a Scientologist, there's no hope for them. So that's why we, as Scientologists, reject medicine and everything else, because we truly are that narcissistic and absolute believers that we are better than you and everybody else. I hate to say that, but it's shit, man. It feels weird to say that, but I'm just trying to tell you, it really is that heavy, and I'm not exaggerating.
Sounds a bit like another cult, Christian Science.
That's what my grandma was in.
They're strict about not going for any medical attention. Just put your trust into Christian Science, and just be glad if you don't have appendicitis, I guess.
Exactly the same thing. Val Kilmer is a Christian Scientist, and he, developed, I think, cancer, something really serious. And through Christian Science, he felt like he didn't, Val Kilmer's an actor or whatever. He felt like he didn't need it. And that's another example of how it's all the same thing. Like almost all the cults will be anti-government medical. I'm not even saying I'm fucking pro-government. I'm just saying you think you're taking on the establishment because you're in a better, but you don't realize you're under the same kind of, you know what I'm saying? You don't realize you're under the same kind of Orwellian control by a narcissist. You think that you're actually fighting the Orwellian system. You know what I mean?
Yes, thank you.
Right, thanks. I just want to, before we go on to the next person real quick, because you brought this up and I thought it was kind of funny, but my Dianetics book that I bought, which by the way I got used, so no money went to Scientology.
I'll allow it then.
Yeah, right in the front of the book it says, this nothing in here is medical knowledge or is not intended to be medical advice, and then immediately goes into that all diseases and everything is psychosomatic. Like, oh,
exactly.
It's just absurd.
It's a completely contradictory book. It also starts out, my man, with this is the greatest discovery since fire, the wheel, and all this shit. Like on the first paragraph, it hits you. That had a powerful effect on me as a kid, by the way, because you wouldn't expect somebody to make the kind of claims in Dianetics and Scientology, especially that Dianetics book. They're so bold, right? He was very confident about this is how it is, and you kind of never heard stuff. So it kind of, for me, it kind of threw me into an ecstatic frame of mind where I was like, interesting, He was so bold about this is the greatest discovery since fire and the wheel. We got the fucking mind figured out. And he was so confident about it. I was like, bitchin', thank God somebody finally has the mind figured out. I want to know about that. The book's total trash, my man. And as a Scientologist, I tried to read it all the way through because you have to many times. I couldn't make it through that fucking thing. And like you said, he contradicts himself left and right, which is all part of the mind control. That book itself is an expert study in how to maybe grab somebody's mind who's vulnerable just by reading a book. I said I never met L. Ron Hubbard, and yet this man who died in 1986, a man who I never met just through the written and spoken word, completely turned me into him and hijacked my entire life, and I never fucking set eyes on him, you know?
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Well, I got a Chip here who's been patiently waiting. So Chip, you should be able to ask your question whenever you unmute. There we go.
You have stated you woke up in 2008, and I didn't see you until like the last year or two. That's a long process, and things that take a long time are. Can you give me a summary of those 10 years, one at a time? What you did in those 10 years?
Oh, God. I'll try to give it. That's such a, that I'll start it out with saying that during those 10 years, it felt like I lived 1,000 lifetimes, because this is almost impossible to answer, my man, because that's why I'm kind of doing these videos, because I described it in the last video as a psychedelic experience. It was like being on LSD for 10 years straight. And I can't get out of this until I put my mind back together, understand what happened, and hopefully not kill myself in the process. Every day sucked. Every day. Every second. You can't turn it off. What it is, man, is basically it's mind control, and it splits your mind, or however you want to look at it. It causes you to not know who you are in so many different ways. As long as you stay in that false personality, you're fine, so to speak. Because that happened like that, I was introduced to a bunch of content in my mind, I understand now, that I couldn't process. I just said in the last video, it was like, if you think of your mind like a computer, right? You got all your beliefs in there. And then the hard drive, the computer just wipes away and you have nothing. So I didn't know who I was, where I was. I mean, I was still here. I was grounded. I wasn't losing my mind necessarily. I carried on like a normal person. But inside my mind and what I was dealing with every day while I'm going about my daily life was insane, because I had this struggle that I knew was going to last. I thought in 2 years I'd have this, my mindset back to normal. I just didn't know it was going to take this long. And the longer it went on, the more I learned, the more I realized how much healing I had to do. And also, this will be going on for the rest of my life. There's no end point, but I hit a milestone where I get it now. But this was so traumatic and so deep. And also, when you get up to those OT levels, which I'm going to talk about, motherfucker was into some dark shit. And those OT levels get really, really deep into your mind. So to answer your question, I mean, each year was different because there was a new challenge. Like the deeper I got into going with, I'm going to deprogram fully. I'm not just, I really wanted to, I had to, dude. I was forced into getting my mind back. So it took me, I didn't really have a decision or a choice as to what I wanted to do anymore. I just wanted to continue acting. I was just about to have a big career, man. I just signed with a big agency. I worked my ass off for God knows how many years to finally get on television. I was getting role after role. I got signed with a big agency. Shit's about to happen. And then this guy drops off this book. And I didn't even know what the mind or a person could experience. And I didn't even know such an experience could happen like this, because it was I cannot put it into words. But each year got deeper and deeper and deeper into my mind as I realized just how fucking damaging this was. I completely lost touch with my daily life and reality. I just tried to do the minimal to get food and just to survive. And every other second was spent reading books and studying this shit and going within and trying to figure out psychology, science, basic shit that I had gone my whole life without. I had my head out in the clouds, so I needed to study what the rest of the world knew. What the fuck is science? I didn't know any of this shit, man. I felt like a 6-year-old just trying to graduate up to the normal knowledge that a normal human would have. And then beyond that, I had to study all this occult shit that this guy's into, because he fucks you up on such a deep level. You at least have to understand what he was into. So what I thought was going to take 2 years took, 10, 12 years or whatever. And it was of like being on acid, wanting to kill myself until I could finally see the light at the end of that tunnel where I get it. My mind is integrated again. I know who I am. I'm normal. And by the way, this whole process, I learned a lot from it, but it just brought me back to who I would have been had I not been born into this family and gone up to the mind control in this cult. I didn't become some amazing super being like they promise, and I don't need to be. I just simply don't have amnesia. I'm a normal person, you know, nothing special. It taught me a shitload. I'm thankful for the experience. I don't regret it, and I don't blame my parents, and I don't blame life. Scientology would tell you that too. Hey, you're not a victim, this and that. Fuck that. We are victims. And so I hold both of those viewpoints at the same time. Goddamn right, they're fucking human trafficking people. They need to be shut down. They're fucked up. But at the same time, I got so much out of this. I don't blame anybody. I wouldn't take it back. I just wouldn't want to go through it a second time. Let me put it to you that way. I hope that answers your question, man.